It was a Friday evening, the kind that usually felt safe and simple. I'd finished my homework early, and Dad had already left that morning for a weekend work retreat 3 hours away. Mom seemed excited for once when I came downstairs. She'd lit a candle, made popcorn, and was pouring herself a glass of wine. She asked if I wanted to watch something together, and I was surprised. We didn't usually do things like that unless Dad was home. She let me pick at first, but then nudged me toward some romantic drama she said had won awards but I'd never heard of. It was kind of slow, and honestly, I felt uncomfortable during certain scenes, not inappropriate but more intimate than what we usually watch together. She laughed in this quiet, odd way at a scene that wasn't even funny. Then she looked at her phone again, the third time in 10 minutes. I noticed she'd done her makeup. Not the casual touch-up kind, but actual eyeliner, lipstick, and perfume. She looked good, but why? She was in yoga pants and a hoodie, but it felt like a costume now. I figured maybe she was bored or lonely without Dad around. Still, something about it didn't sit right. She kept fiddling with her phone, then would set it down with this overly casual smile. I tried to focus on the movie, but I kept catching her glancing at the hallway. It was as if she was waiting for something or someone. At one point, she even adjusted the throw pillows and then sat back like she hadn't done anything. The movie kept playing, but I wasn't really watching it anymore. My eyes would drift to her wine glass, then her watch, then back to the screen. I couldn't shake this weird feeling. Not quite fear, not quite suspicion, just discomfort. Like something didn't belong. Mom suddenly asked if I was enjoying it, and I said, yeah, out of habit, even though I wasn't. She nodded too quickly. There was a pause, then she laughed again, this time at nothing on screen. I checked the time. 8:16 p.m. That meant Dad would probably call soon to say goodnight like he always did when he traveled. Mom hadn't mentioned it. She usually reminded me so I could say hi. I tried to ignore the tightness building in my chest, but it kept growing. A small shift, like the air changing before a storm. I didn't understand it then, not fully. I only knew that something about tonight felt staged, like I was part of a scene I wasn't meant to interrupt. And that's when the doorbell rang. Mom moved fast. Too fast. She paused the movie mid-sentence and stood up, smoothing her hoodie like it mattered. I stayed on the couch, expecting it to be a delivery. But instead of grabbing the door casually, she took a breath first, then opened it with a soft, almost nervous smile. The man standing there was tall, maybe late 30s, wearing a gray sweater and jeans. I'd never seen him before in my life. Mom said, "Hey," softly, too softly. Then, "This is my son," and waved a hand back without turning fully. He looked past her and nodded at me. I just stared. She told him to come in, said something about dropping off that book she'd mentioned. I hadn't heard her mention any book. He walked in slowly, like he'd been here before. I didn't say a word. My eyes stayed on him as they both walked to the kitchen. She didn't even ask if I wanted anything. They talked in low tones. Nothing suspicious if you weren't listening, but I was. At first it was casual, about wine, some class she was taking, random chatter. Then I heard her laugh again. Not her usual laugh. This one was softer, like how someone laughs when they want to be touched. The man said something I couldn't hear, and Mom said, "He's just watching something. We've got time." I froze. Footsteps moved closer to the hallway. I muted the TV. Mom's voice dropped. "You smell the same," she said. Then a pause. "I miss this." No one says that about a book drop-off. I leaned forward, heart racing. The man whispered something, and she told him to be quiet, that he's just a kid. Then a sound, a kiss. Quick, soft. My face got hot. I stood up silently and walked toward the hallway, just enough to see the corner of the kitchen reflected in the hallway mirror. Mom was close to him, her hand on his chest. His arm was around her waist. They didn't look rushed or nervous. They looked familiar. She said, "Last time wasn't enough," and I wanted to unhear it. The man chuckled. "We've got tonight." Another pause. "You sure he won't come back?" Her voice dropped again. "He's 3 hours away." I backed away, stomach churning. My hand shook as I picked up my phone, not even sure why. I didn't take a picture. I didn't record. I just stood there, trapped. I could hear my dad's voice in my head, telling me to look after Mom while he was gone. They stayed in the kitchen for another 10 minutes. When he finally left, Mom walked him to the door. They hugged long. Not fast, not friendly long. I watched her shut the door, close her eyes for a moment, then sigh like she'd just escaped something. She walked back in like nothing happened. Pressed play on the movie. Asked if I wanted more popcorn. I said no. I didn't look at her. My ears were ringing. The screen was just colors. I went upstairs without saying anything. I didn't want to see her face. My legs felt stiff, like they weren't mine. I closed my door softly, sat on the floor, and stared at the wall. Everything I'd seen was replaying in loops, his hand on her hip, her leaning in like it was normal. Like Dad didn't exist. I didn't cry. I felt heat in my face, but no tears. Mostly, I felt sick. Not the kind of sick where you throw up, but the kind where your skin itches and you want to jump out of it. I pulled out my phone, clicked on Dad's name, hovered over the message box. I typed, "Call me when you can," but deleted it. Then I wrote, "I think something's wrong," and erased that too. The worst part was realizing this wasn't the first time. He knew exactly where to walk. She knew what wine to pour. That comment, "Last time wasn't enough," kept echoing. Last time. How many times? I remembered how she ignored his call last weekend, said her phone was charging when it lit up in front of me. I remembered how she laughed louder at random texts, how her perfume smelled different one morning, stronger than usual. I thought it was nothing. The idea that she'd been lying so smoothly made me feel stupid. I believed all of it. The quiet dinners. Her tired eyes. Her fake concern when Dad called and she said, "We miss you." Did she even miss him? I wondered if Dad suspected anything. Maybe he was just trusting, or maybe he didn't want to know. He worked hard. Provided for us. Took her out on her birthday, even when he was exhausted. He always said, "Family comes first." I used to believe it. The confusion was the worst. I didn't know if I should hate her or try to understand her. I didn't know if telling Dad would help or destroy everything. What if he broke down? What if he left? What would that make me? The kid who shattered everything because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. But she'd broken it first. I kept telling myself that. She chose this. She invited that man in. She made me part of it by accident, or maybe she didn't even care. I wasn't sure which hurt more. I thought about going down and saying something. But what would I say? "I saw you." She'd deny it. Call me dramatic. Maybe laugh it off. That's what adults do when they've already decided they're not going to be honest. The house felt smaller now. Too quiet even with the movie playing. Every sound felt fake. Every memory felt tainted. I looked around my room and tried to find something that still felt real. I couldn't. My hands were cold. My mouth was dry. I laid down and stared at the ceiling until the movie ended and the house went dark. I didn't fall asleep. I just waited for morning. Morning came fast and slow. The kind of morning where everything's too bright, but nothing feels awake. I walked downstairs and found her at the counter making coffee, scrolling her phone like she hadn't blown our lives apart 12 hours earlier. She smiled at me like everything was fine. I nodded once, didn't speak. She asked if I wanted eggs. I said no. She offered toast. I said no again. She looked at me a little longer than usual, maybe trying to read something on my face, but I kept it blank. I didn't want to give her anything. Dad called around 9. I recognized the ringtone from the living room. She picked up fast. Her voice changed immediately, higher and softer. "Hey, baby," she said like she was 16. She walked to the back door and I couldn't hear most of it, but I caught one part. "You're coming back today?" She didn't say it like she was happy. After she hung up, I asked, "He's coming back today?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, he finished early. Should be home by 5. I watched her stir her coffee. She wasn't looking at me anymore. That was when I said it. "Mom, why are we watching this? Dad's back soon." She froze. The words came out like I'd been holding my breath all night. She didn't respond right away. Her hand lowered the spoon slowly to the counter.
Still not looking at me.
I didn't repeat it. I wanted the silence to do the rest. Finally, she asked, "What do you mean?" I didn't answer. She looked up and I saw the crack. Not anger. Not denial. Just that flicker of fear, like something had slipped out of her control. She tried to fix her face fast, but it was too late. I saw it. We didn't speak again after that. Not for hours. Around noon, she started cleaning the house. Not regular cleaning, scrubbing, wiping, lighting candles. She cooked early, too early. Chicken, vegetables, rice. The kind of meal she made when she was nervous or guilty. I sat in the same chair all afternoon, pretending to read. By the time 4:50 came around, she'd changed clothes twice. Dad's car pulled into the driveway at 4:58. I stood up, phone in my hand. Not to record, not to call, just holding it like I needed something solid. She stepped toward the door. I didn't move. Her eyes met mine just once. I didn't blink. The doorknob turned. My dad's voice rang out cheerfully. "I'm home." She smiled and turned to greet him. I stayed in place, still gripping the phone, heartbeat steady. My mouth dry, throat tight, but I felt calm. He walked in, dropped his bag, opened his arms for a hug. I stepped forward. Not toward her.
Toward him.